Hello and welcome to the 5th of our professional photo podcasts. As always, it's time to make a brew, relax and turn up the volume as we bring you a fortnightly slice of everything you need to know from the world of professional photography. My name is Matty Graham, I'm contributing editor on the magazine, and joining me at the end of the line is the main man himself, Mr. Terry Hope, editor of Professional Photo. So thanks for joining us, and if you're new to the podcasts, what can you expect from Terry and myself? Well, we always aim to bring you as much variety as possible, including the latest product news, we try to answer your questions, we speak to the industry's leading players, and we explore everything that goes into making a professional picture in today's competitive industry. So hello Terry, what have you been up to since we last talked?
Hello Matty. Yes, I actually managed to fit in a week away, which was very welcome, and a year like this has been.
I bet.
Got myself off to Turkey for a week and just crossed my fingers that I wasn't going to be on a 2-week list of staying at home when I got back. Unfortunately, we stayed off that. So, yes, refreshed the batteries a bit, more than I intended because there was no Wi-Fi at the hotel. So, yes, I didn't do an awful lot of work, which was actually quite a good thing. And, yeah, apart from that, I've been hard at work getting issue 176 ready to go. That goes to press next week, out on October the 8th. And that's been a really interesting issue to work on. There are lots of things going into that. We've got a big feature on vlogging. We've got a few new bits of kit to be looking at. The Panasonic S5, for example, we've managed to get hold of an early one of those, and that's a really important camera for professionals. And
Yes,
I think that's going to be a bit of a game changer, given the fact that it's full frame, given the price it's coming in at, and all the facilities it offers. Panasonic, talking to me about it, we're presenting it as the full frame version of the GH5, and I think we all know what a popular filmmaking camera that has been. So that really is something a bit special. And I lined up an interview with Tyler Shields, who's a very high-level American fine art photographer, fascinating photographer. And yeah, one of the funny things I took out of that is that he just never sleeps. And he actually presented it to me as the fact that he needs 2 to 3 hours a night sleep. I was interviewing him probably about 1 o'clock in the morning his time, and he was going for a walk, and that was his time for catching up with things. Then he talks to European galleries at 2 to 3 in the morning. Then he watches a film, and then he sleeps for about 2 hours. Then he gets up and does it all again. So, and he reckons he's doubled his career by doing that, which is an interesting way of looking at it. And I don't think an awful lot of photographers could match that. I certainly couldn't do. But yes, that's a really, really interesting interview and some fantastic pictures. So look out for that one as well. That's going to be a good story.
Great stuff. Well, I can't understand how that would work, sort of just getting 2 hours of sleep, but it feels like that's what I've been doing recently. So this week I've crammed in 3 filming days already this week, and it's a strange sort of workflow to stay up to date with, and it sort of has parallels with Tyler, as you were saying. I mean, my life this week has been charging kit, traveling, shooting productions, coming back, downloading content, charging up kit, and repeating it again. So it feels like, a bit of a sort of hamster wheel, but it's all been amazing fun. And the highlight for me this week was it was Battle of Britain Day on Monday, and I got to shoot on RAF Cottesmore, which is now Kendrew Barracks. It's sort of changed over from RAF to Army. And we had the whole of the runway to ourselves. This massive long runway. It's one of the longest in the country. And we were filming an automotive production. So, cars racing backwards and forwards, Ferraris, all that sort of stuff. And it was just such a great day. The weather was sunny, skies were blue. And it just felt, amazingly emotive to be on a place like that on such a special day. So that was a good highlight for me. But before we go any further, of course, as we do every podcast, we need to say a big thank you to Sennheiser, who have kindly sponsored the podcast and supporting us with Sennheiser gear. We use the Sennheiser Mark IV True Condenser microphones, amazing bits of kit, made in Germany, great for podcasts and music. So thanks again, Sennheiser, for the continued support. So let's get on to news, because there was a bit of a strange camera that dropped this week, and it is the Sony A7C. And it's a little bit different from all the Sonys that have gone before, because what they've done is they've taken the technology of their full frame cameras and shrank it down into a camera that is only 1% larger than the A6600 APS-C camera. So you've got a full frame camera in the size of an APS-C camera, and it's the world's lightest full frame camera with IBIS. Of course, the Sigma FP still holds the record for the world's lightest full frame camera, but it doesn't have IBIS. So Sony have sort of stolen a march there. What do you think of this camera, Terry? Have you had a chance to have a look at it?
I've not had a chance to actually physically see it. I've had the press release like everybody else, so I've been reading about it. And yes, like you say, I think it just weighs in at 509 grams, which is crazy. And as you say, the same kind of size and weight as an APS-C camera, so it's going to be very small. It combines the things that people, the manufacturers at least, seem to perceive that people want, which is compact size, lightweight, and full frame. Full frame is very much the flavour of the month, isn't it? Where we've seen that's the way everybody seems to be going, and I don't know. My feedback from other people is sometimes cameras can be too small, and you often find that I think the Japanese market, and obviously we're talking about a lot of Japanese companies. Japanese market very much likes compact cameras and very small and lightweight cameras. Sometimes that can be almost a bit too much for different audiences, but it'd be interesting to see. And Sony themselves have described it as a camera that is perfect for the vlogger and the whole vlogging market. As I mentioned previously, we're doing a feature on vlogging in the next issue, but that whole area, obviously Sony previously have released a dedicated vlogging camera as well, as have Panasonic. So that bit of the market as well, a lot of people are looking at that quite seriously, and clearly is growing quite fast at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you've said there, Terry. I mean, I actually think, though, that do you really need heavy cameras these days? I mean, it's an interesting dilemma and conundrum to sort of explore, because, you know, the Sony A7C, the new camera that we're talking about, has 24 megapixels. It's got the same size LCD, 3.2-inch LCD, as the larger A7 series cameras. Slightly smaller EVF. It shoots 4K video. It has all the good bits of the Sony A7 system, but it's smaller. And I'm wondering, you know, I mean, all right, you might want to show up on sets with a nice big camera and impress the clients. But apart from that, what do you need a big camera for anymore?
It can be steadier to hold, a better balance perhaps than a very small camera. I'd certainly agree that it's a brilliant travel camera. Probably a very good street camera because it's so unobtrusive. You could walk around with it and you wouldn't gather any attention at all walking around with that camera. It wouldn't look like a professional model, but clearly has the capacity to function like one, which is a really good combination. Like everything else, really, I would absolutely love to get my hands on it and give it a trial, and I'm sure you would as well. That would be the kind of proof of it, really. But a fascinating model and an interesting move from Sony, I think.
Definitely. I mean, you know, this a lot of people are wondering what the C stands for in the title of the camera. Some people are saying cheap because, you know, it's a little bit more affordable than some of the other cameras. But C, I think, is concept. So, you know, they're sort of exploring how photographers will react to smaller kit. And I think it is a brave move, and it's very Sony-like to do this because they're not shy of sort of bringing something very different to market, and I think that should be applauded. And actually, I mean, we're going to move on to the main item now, because the lightweight dimensions of the Sony A7C really got us thinking when we were putting together the show notes for the podcast, thinking about equipment that can be used by professionals but is truly small and mighty. So Terry and I set ourselves the task of thinking of 3 items of kit each that fit into this small but mighty bill. So who wants to go first, Terry? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I came up with, as I mentioned, I've been away, and we took our GoPro Black with us, which really kind of came into its own because of all the things it does. Obviously, really small, very robust and durable. You could take it in the water. My son is into scuba diving, so that went with him when he did a scuba dive. He's also doing skydiving, and again, that goes with him as a chest-mounted camera when he's doing that. Just goes everywhere. It's such a useful piece of kit, and but obviously the results from that are fantastic. They're perfectly up to dropping into a sequence for a film if you're shooting it for the web or something like that. It's 4K obviously, and very, very usable. Does things that other cameras couldn't do. I mean, you could obviously get a big full frame filmmaking camera, but it's not going to go into the nooks and crannies that a GoPro can, and it's not as robust and indestructible as a GoPro is either. So horses for courses as part of your kit as a professional, if you're making videos, I would say that's a brilliant piece of kit, and obviously very well priced as well. My second was Three-Legged Thing sent me through their new Ray tripod, which is a travel tripod, and very, very compact, and it's just beautifully made. It's one of those things that does a job, very functional, but it's just beautiful to look at. It's beautifully finished, and it just feels so robust and solid, but lightweight, very small, and the legs unscrew so it can become a tabletop tripod as well. You would tuck it into your carry-on luggage with no problem at all, and yet it's really sturdy, very secure. And I mean, if you're looking for a travel tripod, obviously there's a lot of choice out there. This one isn't the most affordable, but it's just an excellent piece of kit, and I would thoroughly recommend that for somebody who is filming or taking photographs abroad. That would be a really good thing to kind of take with you. And then my third one is a little bit off beam, really, because I was thinking about it, and I've been using it quite a bit lately, which is my Para Amalfi drone, which of course is another thing that can. I didn't take it with me, but it could tuck into a suitcase, really small. Obviously, it's up against a massive rival in the form of DJI, which has pretty much cornered the entire drone market. But Parrot's still hanging on in there, and I can thoroughly recommend the Amalfi as a potential alternative. It's done a fantastic job for us when we've used it. As I say, very lightweight, very small, very easy to operate. You just set it up in moments. And again, exactly what we talked about, something very small, very usable, capable of doing a professional job.
Excellent. Well, I mean, that's 3 very different bits of kit. I mean, it's interesting that you should mention the GoPro, because, of course, yesterday, GoPro brought out their new flagship camera, which is the Hero 9 Black. And, last few years, they've just sort of incrementally changed features, but this one sees a big leap forward. So it goes from 12 megapixels to 20 megapixels for stills. It can shoot 5K footage, the new one. It's a fantastic. It seems to have got a much better battery life as well, a 30% better battery life, because that's often one of the sort of niggles with these sort of cameras, is that the battery life you have to keep changing them, and that's not ideal. But of course, they're very small, as you mentioned, very small bits of kit. But GoPro seem to have really cracked it this time with the battery life. The tripod, I completely agree with you. Three-legged thing. There's almost sort of works of art. These tripods, aren't they? I mean, each one has a sort of its own sort of character and personal name, and like you say, they're not the most affordable, but you pay for what you get, don't you? And if you buy one of those, it's gonna last.
Yes.
And the Anafi drone, 4K. It's affordable. It folds up as well, so it's a very, as you say, travel friendly option. And it is good that everybody thinks drones, the only drones out there are the DJIs. But it is good to sort of have a look about the market and see that there are different sort of options out there. I know that they actually do a sort of thermal version of that drone as well, where it's used by sort of search and rescue teams as well to sort of find missing people and things like that. So it's quite an interesting sort of product, and one we should probably sort of look at in detail on another podcast. So here are my 3 items of kit. So first up is the Record GR3, and this is a camera that is great for street photography. It's a 24 megapixel camera, APS-C sensor, and they've squeezed that sensor into a camera that genuinely fits in your pocket. It is tiny, and when people say pocket cameras and the lens sticks out and they don't properly fit in the front pocket of your jeans, this is not the case with the GR3. It definitely fits in there, and it's a brilliant camera. It's got quite a cult following, and this version is again sort of seen some huge steps up in features. It's got in-body image stabilization. It's got a built-in ND filter. It's got a touch screen. It's small, black, discreet. It's everything you want from a street photography camera. And they're good fun as well. The batteries don't last that long, but you can change batteries or charge them up via a USB-C connection. But it's a really nice bit of kit, and very much actually has parallels with the three-legged thing tripod, because it's crafted. It's almost a work of art. Some cameras are very sort of functional and cold, but this, you can see why it's sort of developed that cult following. The next product harks back to the action cameras, but this one's slightly different. So this is a DJI Osmo Pocket, and this is the one that has a 3-axis gimbal. And it's fantastic for filming because it does 4K 60p, and this thing is absolutely tiny. As the name suggests, pocket, if it fits in your pocket, but you can connect it up via a multi-pin connector to your smartphone, so you can use the larger screen of your, you know how big these smartphones are these days, and you can use that as a sort of monitor if you like. But the footage that this thing provides is so steady. It's really very, very cool. Have you had a chance to use one of these, Terry?
Oh yes, I have, and absolutely, I'd agree with absolutely everything you say there. And it's a fantastic piece of kit. It's also really affordable. I'm not sure what the price has come down to now, but it was. I know it's not beyond the scope of any professional to just buy something like that. You can imagine doing a bit of behind the scenes video at a wedding or something like that, or on a job for a client to give them a bit of extra material for their website when you supply the job, that kind of thing. And the quality is terrific, isn't it? It's really good.
Absolutely, and as you see, I mean, it's tiny and it's affordable. So it was $329. I think recently DJI has sort of dropped the price on it to around. I think they've knocked £100 off actually. So it's well within the reach of professionals and sort of amateurs alike actually. But it's a great bit of kit, and the quality of the video you get is. For dropping in B-roll, it's perfectly suitable for a professional production. Now, the last bit of kit on our small and mighty little run-through is a bit of a controversial one, a bit of a curveball, but it's the Canon 90D. And I've put a little asterisk with this because I've got the Canon 90D, and I pair it with a 40mm pancake lens, which of course is tiny as well. So bear with me on this, because if you want a lightweight DSLR setup, the Canon 90D really is perfect. So it's 701 grams, and when you add in that 40mm pancake lens, which weighs 130 grams, it's still lighter than most other sort of DSLRs. But it gives a lot of features, because the 90D can shoot 4K video. It can shoot full HD slow motion, something that actually the flagship 5D Mark IV can't do. The slow motion in that is limited to 720p. It's got 32 megapixels, which again is actually more resolution than the 5D Mark IV. So if you can live with the fact that it's got an APS-C sensor, then it's got a huge amount more going for it than the 5D Mark IV. For example, it's got the vari-angle screen. It's got a faster burst rate than the 5D Mark IV. So in terms of a small, lightweight kit that can be used for professional applications, then the 90D absolutely hits the mark. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, totally. And it's interesting. I mean, everything you've mentioned, you clearly are using in a professional workflow. So it's not conjecture. You're actually showing that it can be done. And what do you think about the build quality? I mean, a lot of the things we talked about, products that are totally capable, they might be aimed at the consumer. They're totally capable of doing a professional job. But talking to manufacturers, they would say, well, one of the big things about a professional model is the build quality, and that it's going to be weatherproof, it's going to be robust enough to go out on jobs, and it's not going to let you down, because obviously as a professional, that's the disaster that you absolutely have to avoid. So what do you feel about the build quality? Is it up to what you need as a professional?
That's a really, really great question, Terry. Obviously, the build quality won't be on par with something like the 5D4, but as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I've done 3 filming jobs this week. I've used the 90D on all 3. If I take along backup cameras, and if the 90D breaks while I'm getting a shot, then so be it. It breaks. Everything I use is insured. As every professional should do. You should always insure your kit. And if it breaks, it breaks. I'd rather not worry about build quality. I want to worry about getting that perfect shot for my client. I don't want to worry about, is this camera going to break? If it breaks, it breaks. I'll swap it out and I'll grab another camera. But, I'd rather get the shot and break a bit of kit than not get the shot for my client. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yes. And I think in future podcasts, I know we're looking at talking about kit that is aimed at the consumer in theory, but actually can do a brilliant job for the professional. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that is something I think that has changed a lot these days. That the features that are being presented to photographers at affordable price points are just off the scale now. It's a completely different picture to what it was a few years ago, and you really can get involved at a very high level without spending a fortune.
Definitely. Well, I think we've proven that there is plenty of kit on the market for professionals who perhaps want to downsize and want to find quality kit that is both small and mighty. So I think that's a job well done there. Now let's move on and give a quick nod to TPS, which of course this year has gone virtual because of all the situation that's going on. And it depends when you're listening to this podcast. If you're listening to it later next week, then obviously this is going to be all news. But I think we do need to give a bit of a nod to TPS, who have done a fine job in rejigging the offering and are going virtual. Do you want to say anything about this, Terry?
Yes, it's all come together a little bit late in the day. I've been getting information coming in from the big players who are getting behind it. And actually, this very morning, I've got a bit of hot news in that Sennheiser have just announced that they're going to be doing quite a bit at the show, which didn't surprise me because they were the sponsor of the video stage. And I think sometimes it's forgotten that this is the photography and video show. And obviously the video side is is a smaller element of the whole thing, but an important one, and just shows how video is kind of coming on. But it's really interesting. Sennheiser are actually going to be doing a lot at the show, which includes there's a lot of presentations on the main stage. They've got some of their ambassadors are going to be talking. I've got Tanya Esteban, for example. He's going to be talking about shooting for the edit, wildlife filmmaking. So there's a lot there. And obviously you're going to find that I think we talked before we came on air about who's supporting it. I know Sony and Nikon and Canon are all going to be doing quite a lot of events. I think there's going to be special show deals and things. Obviously, the show deals are a big thing that people go to the TPS for, and you can get some unbelievable bargains. Well, I understand there's going to be some really good offers on over the weekend. Obviously, it's free to sign up, and I would say definitely. It's all pros and cons, isn't it? It's going to be very different to the usual experience, but it does mean you haven't got to get yourself up to the NEC. If you're in another part of the country, you can just sit at home and sign up and go online. And by all accounts, the experience is going to be as near to the real thing as they can manage in a virtual setting. So that should be interesting in itself to see what they come up with. But there's definitely going to be some value there. It won't cost you anything, and I think it's going to be an interesting experience. But let's all hope we can do it for real next year.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Well, I mean, that about does it for our 5th podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed it and found some of it useful, especially the talk about small and mighty kit. Look out for the next episode in a fortnight's time, and until then, enjoy your photography. Thanks for joining us, Terry.
Thank you, Matty. Speak soon.